Front and Center. Front and Center. A focus on important and significant developments affecting the lives of Filipinos, not only in the Philippines, but also those living and working around the world. Join us in Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Welcome to Front and Center, the program that focuses on development in the Philippines, legislation that provides policies, and directions that strives to promote a better economy for the country, issues that concern the welfare and well-being of every Filipino. All of these and more will be Front and Center. You can watch this program on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, Radyo Pilipinas World Service. This program, Front and Center, can also be heard on the following shortwave frequencies: 12.010 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.820 MHz. Join us for another edition of Front and Center with your host, Jerome Toledo. In this edition of Front and Center, we will focus on the recent trust rating survey of President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. as released by the Octa Research this month. How significant this survey is to the ordinary Filipinos? Here's the interview of the program to Octa Research Fellow, Professor Ranjit Rai. Thank you so much, Professor Ranjit Rai, for joining us in the program Front and Center on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Yes, thank you for inviting me to your talk show. I've been a good day to all those listening in the Philippines and around the world.
All right. And it's our pleasure. But first things first, Professor Ranjit Rai, before we go to the main topic, so I would like to ask, how often Octa Research releases its Tugon ng Masa survey?
Okay, so let me do a quick introduction.
Mm-hmm.
Octa Research is a non-partisan, non-stock, non-profit organization dedicated to providing public opinion research in the service of the Filipino. And we've been since for the last 3 years. You have known us because of our work in COVID. And many Filipinos, both individuals and organizations, have relied on our data, especially during the pandemic. And we decided to continue providing data
beyond
and
COVID.
Of course, public opinion research outputs accessible to our kababayans. And so we do 4 surveys every year. That's standard. And these are entitled the Tugon ng Masa quarterly surveys. And these surveys are made up of different types of probes or studies that look at issues that are important to society, the economy, and politics. So that the Filipino citizen may know what the country thinks about on a range of issues. No? And so this is the object of Octa Research. This initiative is largely a public service initiative. It's funded largely through subscriptions to the survey, which are paid for, and we dedicate nearly half the survey to probes that are relevant to the public. And one of these probes is our quarterly survey on the awareness, trust, and performance of top government officials in the country. And so we just released our survey on the President, the Vice President, the Senate President, the Speaker of the House, including the Chief Justice, their awareness, trust, and performance survey results for a survey that was conducted for the second quarter from June 30 to July 5. We interviewed 1,200 respondents all around the country, and this national survey, which is a regular survey of Octa, has a margin of error of plus minus 3%. Okay.
Okay, so you mentioned
Yeah.
you mentioned you conduct quarterly surveys, so that's like 3 to 4 times a year, correct?
Yes, that you're correct. Yeah, and we provide the data that's for the public, accessible to the public through media, and so that's why we're thankful to Radyo Pilipinas for providing us the opportunity to share our data. So
Mm-hmm.
this is how we serve the public by letting the public know how everyday Filipinos
Mm.
think about issues. And the issue at hand is really trust and performance of our top government officials. So,
Mm.
what are some of the key points?
Mm, right.
Often we look at numbers, but as I tell my students and also, you know, basically the stakeholders and subscribers of Okta, which is the public, then we also have to look at trends. Are trends going up or
Mm-hmm.
going down? So for this particular quarter, it was very distinct that the president's numbers uh, improved
Mm-hmm. Right.
uh, nationally, no? Whether it's trust or
Mm-hmm.
whether it's performance. No?
Mm.
So when you look at the president's numbers, that's President BBM, okay, for the second quarter of the year,
Right.
his trust ratings improved from 69%, which is the first quarter um, rating,
Yeah, in first
to
quarter of
70. Was a
2024.
very, very nominal change, but it's still a change we recorded. And people have to understand this is well within the margin of error, which is plus minus 3. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
VP
Mm-hmm.
Sara's, VP Sara Duterte's numbers moved from 68 trust in the first quarter of 2024. This is a survey conducted last March.
Mm-hmm.
It went down 3 percentage points to 65%. Again, still within the margin of error,
Mm.
still nominal, but then there was a movement. So that, as a survey company, we have to show all these movements.
I see.
You'll notice even in the United States, even if it's within the margin of error, just a 1% movement in
Yeah.
the numbers for Harris or for Trump, they still report it. It's the same thing with us as a scientific organization. We just observe and agnostically and
Mm-hmm.
objectively present the changes in the data.
I see.
But what seems to be clear, whether in the case of trust of the president and vice president, that the numbers of the president
Mm-hmm.
are moving upwards because his numbers have recovered. Just to give you a view,
Yeah.
in December of 2023, the president's trust rating was at 75.
Men-
It went down 6 points in the first quarter of 2024 to 69. Now in
I see.
July, okay, in the second quarter, it improved. You have to see, even with just you're seeing a change, a trend that has changed from going down to going up.
I see.
Will it be sustained? We don't know. Now, in the case of VP Sara, she went down in trust from a high, okay, of 77 in December of
Mm-hmm.
2023. Today, it's 65.
I
And
see.
it's not gone up. There's no indicator that shows it has gone up. It's actually going down. So we have 2 quarters, which is why in Okta's view, her numbers are declining, and while albeit they're nominal decline per quarter, but
Okay.
when you look at the perspective of 2 or 3 quarters, it's actually quite significant.
Mm-hmm. I see. And just
So it's
to
not recovered.
okay, I would like to ask, since you mentioned those numbers, so I would like to ask, but before we go deep into that, what kind of methodology that you use to obtain these numbers, if you're going to conduct a survey regarding this?
Okay, so okay. So to our listeners and viewers, the survey is conducted nationwide. We use multi-stage, random sampling method. Okay, and so that ensures that not only is our survey objective, and because of the sample size of 1,200, there is a level of precision. Okay, and because of the scientific method that we utilize, is a 95% confidence level. Okay, we provide this data with a lot of confidence that it reflects the country issue of trust and performance.
I see.
So what do? We go to provinces, cities, barangays, so a random sampling method, and we interview face to face. This is not an internet, telephone, or mobile app in mediated survey. It's really face to face. So
Face-to-face, okay.
we interview 1,000 to randomly selected, and we conduct face-to-face interviews. So it normally takes us some time. There's a lag because we have to encode, we have to analyze, we have to clean up our data. And so this was conducted in the second quarter of 2024 from July 5.
Okay. And you mentioned...
So,
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, this is also being released only the last few days. Yeah.
I see. And you mentioned earlier that the trust rating of President Marcos Jr. Rose up 2% from 69 to 71%. So, yeah, I would like to ask, what is the significance of this latest trust rating of President Marcos to ordinary Filipinos?
Okay, but we can't discuss it without talking about performance.
Sure.
So I'll just quickly go to performance ratings. So while trust has gone up nominally within the margin of error very slightly for the president, he did go up in terms of performance ratings. So when you look at the performance ratings of the president, it went up from 65% in the last quarter to 68%. That's a 3 point, still within the margin of error.
3%.
In national standards, but it's a 3% increase. You see, the nominal is important to emphasize, but at the same time, when you go down to the grassroots level, meaning by regions, okay, then you'll see the stark changes. So, for example, in the case of the president, he moved from 48% in performance satisfaction rating in Mindanao to 56%. So you know already that the president and his administration did something in Mindanao, okay, to improve their trust and performance ratings, because he when you look at it nationally, it looks nominal 2 or 3%, but when you go down to the roots of it, when you go down to the granular level, looking at classes, socioeconomic classes, and of course regions, the administration did very well in Mindanao in the last quarter. So then you start investigating what happened. And the president, together with his economic team, together with the administration, allocated a lot of resources to respond to the impact of El Nino in Mindanao and in Visayas. And you can see that because of the intervention, there was a bump in the trust and performance ratings of the president. So what does it actually, to answer your question, finally, performance matters.
Yeah.
Trust and performance is built on good governance. Trust and performance is built on the government responding to needs. Now, when you look at the long view, the president started with nearly 8 out of 10. So you'll notice that after the honeymoon period, it has gone down. And part of the reason why it's gone down is really because of the economic situation. It's also seen in our surveys that the top 3 urgent concerns of everyday Filipinos really is managing inflation, which, while the government, it's really just one actor economic system. Number 2, the next urgent concern is really stagnant wages. which the
Yeah.
government is trying to deal with nominally through minimum wage
Yes.
increases around regions. And third, and lastly, the issue of affordable food, which the government has promised to resolve by providing 29 peso per kilo
Yes.
rice. No,
And
we
also
don't know if all of these
mhm.
interventions, which are most help reduce the price of the food cost, no? Which
Yeah.
is related to the number one concern of most Filipinos, which is managing inflation, because a core element of inflation is food inflation. So
Mhm.
if government can find a way to provide affordable food for the everyday Filipino, we can experience in the brief. Let me add what the president rightly pointed out.
Mhm.
In the end, government has to perform. Government has to serve the people.
Mm.
But at the
Right.
same time, government is not there to get high ratings. Government is not here to be popular, but to
Mhm.
do the right thing. And to do the right thing is really to focus on these three areas: managing inflation, providing an environment where everyday Filipinos can get decent wages and access to jobs. And third, to make sure that food prices are stable, are manageable, and accessible for the everyday Filipino.
Mhm.
So we have to understand that this probe is part of a larger probe on
Mhm.
the socioeconomic situation of the country,
Okay.
which is not very good actually. Poverty is on the rise.
Mhm.
Hunger has also increased in the second quarter of um, 2022. Self-rated
Mhm.
self-rated on the context,
Mhm.
which is kind of surprising because the president still got, despite all the problems, no, and the
Mhm.
challenging context that he's in and his administration is in, still got a bump up for trust and performance.
I. Mm.
Now, the reason for that, I was stating, is because he was able to respond to the very specific regional concerns in Mindanao and Visayas during the quarter. Now, if we can uh, encourage government to continue to put its eye on the ball as far as economic
Mhm.
reform, no, and social development reform is concerned. My belief, my personal opinion, not necessarily Octa's opinion, but my
Okay.
personal opinion,
Mhm.
is that he'll be able to sustain, in fact, even improve his trust and
Mhm.
performance ratings.
I
But
see.
caveat, I provide a caveat here to be popular. He's here to do is really to encourage, no, government agencies to do their job in ensuring that
Mhm.
Filipinos are able to deal with these three challenges that I already pointed at that are dominant in our surveys.
Mhm. I see. And let's put the some factors aside. So you mentioned that in order to get trust a very good trust rating, so you the government must, or the government officials, specifically President Marcos Jr. must exercise good governance, and he must respond to the needs of Filipinos.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
And the needs of the Filipinos are also seen in our survey,
Mhm.
which is
And he must
the
address
top
that.
three at least urgent needs: managing inflation,
Yeah.
wages, and third, making sure that food is cheap enough and accessible enough for the everyday Filipino. Focus has to be on these three things.
Mhm.
Still
And mhm.
concerned because the economy is actually improved. It's
Yes.
created an expansion. There are more jobs now than they were 2 or 3 quarters ago. More people are employed, but they're employed in jobs whose pay is not enough to manage the high cost of goods and services.
Mm.
That is created really largely a context created because of high inflation.
I see. And just to mention here in this discussion, President Marcos Jr. is doing everything to improve the economy by encouraging investors from other countries to to invest, and at the same time providing to provide jobs. And also President Marcos is relentless in providing assistance to our fellow Filipinos who have been affected by natural calamities in the recent months. So
Yes.
those are the things that the President Marcos Jr. Must do in order to at least to have a sense of a good trust rating, right?
I think, yeah, you're correct. Of course, that he has to do his job. In a sense, he has to focus on the job at hand. He knows what needs to be done. The goal now is to encourage government with these slightly, nominally improving trust ratings. That what they do as government officials, what agencies are able to do, really touches people's lives. I mean, just one quarter, he was able to change the trend from downward for the last two quarters to a movement up. And it has to be said that it's the first time in 3 years. It's the first time in 3 years as far as Octa Research survey results.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique situation where the president has overtaken the vice president, albeit nominally in terms of trust and performance ratings. Now, will this gap widen over the next few quarters? Maybe not. Maybe the vice president, if she continues to do some of the programs she started, will also improve. The important point is there's no competition between the vice president and the president as far as the ratings structure is concerned. It's just that the trends show that there is a decline, a slight decline in the VP's trust. Now that's not a bigger, but that's a different question altogether. Because as far as Octa is concerned, it seems that president's trust and performance ratings are correlated with the government's performance on key issues, no? Specifically the economy. I think it's the most important area where the government needs to continue doing more work to improve its performance. In the case of the vice president, we can only offer speculation, conjecture, hypothesis why her numbers are dipping. Okay, and
But of course, they need to work
that's
to
a different question altogether. But again, I like to emphasize, government is not there for high trust and performance ratings. These are just indicators. These are
Yes.
just really guideposts, no, and snapshots of a particular period in time. The goal for government is really to perform. The goal of government is really to sustain good governance.
Yes,
and,
that's correct.
We are able our kababayans.
All right.
So that's the long-term goal, and I think the government is trying. It needs to try harder, as the president has said. He's inspired by these numbers.
Yes, that's
albeit
correct.
they're nominal.
You mentioned
but,
that earlier.
He has to. It has to convince government to do better in the next quarters.
And of course, Professor Ranjit, right?
Really,
Sorry to butt in. The president and vice president must work together, of course.
I think, Jerome, you're completely correct. All the politicking and all the noise is also affecting both the trust and performance ratings. The focus on politics at the moment and the divisive politics that seems to be apparent as far as the context, our political context is concerned, has an impact on trust and performance of both government officials.
I see.
And my sense is just like your sense. If they focus less on politics and focus more on performance, focus more on good governance, focus more on serving the people, I think they shouldn't be worried about the trust and performance ratings, because definitely they'll be trending upwards. And it will be for the betterment of the country and our people.
And I would like to put this in this discussion, unity. Okay, but before I let you go, Professor Ranjit Rai, so one more question. So I know there will be oppositions in every administration, in every government that the the Philippines has amid disruption from President Marcos Jr.'s detractors right now. Will he able to keep the momentum, and how should he maintain his good trust rating?
Honestly, the president's role and the government's role focal. These ratings are just a guidepost to see if government programs are working, to see if government initiatives are touching people's lives. But the goal is not to be popular. The goal is to do the right thing. And the right thing is to serve the Filipino people. Now, he's not going to run for the election. Trust and approval should not be the objective. His own service to the country. It's just a part of that plethora of guideposts and data that he uses to improve good governance, to achieve good governance in the country. The goal is to lead. The goal is to enhance government services, especially for the poor and the marginalized. We call them the faceless, the voiceless, and the powerless in our society. As long as he continues to keep his eye on the ball, which is his medium-term development plan, which is his plan to grow the economy, build on good governance initiatives, sustain democracy, I believe he'll be able to sustain or create development that will truly touch people's lives. So that should be the goal of the president. And these survey guideposts, together with other types of information that he uses to evaluate if programs for the particular quarter are actually working. And this should be taken together with other probes. As I told you, while he is improving in trust and performance, people are saying they're having a hard time as far as managing inflation is concerned. Aside from the fact they're yearning for higher wages, so government has to start thinking about creating benefits, and I think they're trying taxation, providing social services, better run, better conceptualized social services for the poor, and providing ayuda. While it's nominal, stopgap, and short term, providing assistance to the poor actually does times. So this is to expand, improve the operational efficiency so that they can touch more people, touch the lives of many more people, especially those who are very poor. And that's where the surveys come in, because they provide you a snapshot every quarter of the socioeconomic context. And hopefully, as survey companies, and we're not the only ones, okay, we can inform government. This is how people think about the situation. This is what they urgently need. And this is what they think about what you're doing. So this is why public opinion research is very important. But the object of good governance is not to get high trust and performance rating.
Yeah, absolutely.
The goal is to serve the country. The goal is to serve our people.
All right, and that's you're absolutely right there, Professor Ranjit Rai. Okay. And with that, thank you so much, Professor Ranjit Rai, for gracing us in our program, Front and Center, on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Jerome, for giving Okta Research the opportunity to share its data with our kababayans here in the Philippines and around the world. Thank you.
And that concludes this edition of Front and Center on Radyo Pilipinas World Service, together with our producer, Erwin Peñano, and technical personnel Milo Janela and Leo Magpayo. This is Jerome Toledo saying mabuhay and love the Philippines.
You have just heard and watched Front and Center. Front and Center. Join us again for another edition here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Front and Center.